Forgive me, Alistair, for not getting too excited about political parties talking about benefits reform. I've been here in my job for nearly 30 years, and I've seen this story unfold a number of times. For me, the starting point needs to be revisited. I was involved many years ago in a piece of work done by Scope, the big national charity, which looked at the extra costs of disabled people. And they decided, after working with many disabled people throughout the whole country, that disabled people were already £500+ per month worse off, just trying to live independently. So, to think about welfare rights reform, it's not just about work capability tests or getting people into work. It's about for a start, there's a pay gap. Disabled people are statistically £3,500 a year underpaid compared to their non-disabled peers. The wider story needs to be looked at. Carers of disabled people are getting paid less than £2 an hour when you look at carers. So there's a whole piece of work to be done before we start looking at.
We've begun that process, and hurrah as well for John Ashworth to have started that as well. But just in the middle of that answer, we were looking at a job centre, and we've had several emails in from GBNews viewers and listeners saying the whole process of assessing whether or not one is fit for work is overcomplicated. There's repetition within it. You have to very often go through the same tests for different questions. So are you basically saying that is a system that of itself is not fit for purpose and we could change it? Forget about the levels of money, support for carers at the moment, just for a moment. But the actual assessment process, that needs to be torn up and start again.
Absolutely. It's very binary. You are either fit for work or you're not fit for work. If you speak to a lot of disabled people's organisations across the country, they'll be they'll be suggesting the use of common sense and the social model of disability. Instead of saying, looking at the impairment, you should look at what is the barrier to you getting employment. What is it that you need to have in place for you to work successfully and then retain that employment? And I say the assessment is too binary. It's black or white, and there's no grey area to look at.
One of the reasons why it's binary, and both sides say this, and it's a tricky one, is simply that if you are in government or running the system, you can't just chuck money at a problem willy-nilly without asking fairly fundamental questions. So if disability benefit, long-term unemployment benefit, is being paid for by the taxpayer is going to want to know that it is a reasonable, fair and transparent assessment, that it's not just money for old rope.
Yeah, I do agree the taxpayer's got a very, genuine interest in how that money's spent, but common sense needs to be applied. The amount of disabled people who are refused for universal credit and the disability premium simply because of not getting quite to that mark, which would have given them that entitlement. And that a lot of that is because, back to what we said earlier, the assessment is too binary. Some common sense needs to be applied in that assessment, and it should be transparent. I'm not denying that argument at all, but I say it's about applying some common sense, which we seem to have. Everything's gone computerized. It's either a yes or a no answer. There's no kind of consideration of the wider picture in each answer.